Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Well Beyond the Arc. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we want to thank you guys for joining us once again. We're going to be talking, as always, NBA basketball for the next hour or so. If you haven't done so already, please make sure, don't forget to hit that subscribe button in the bottom left-hand corner if you're listening to us on YouTube. You can also catch us on Spotify and wherever you can find your podcasts. Montana, we got a chance to catch our breath over the weekend on some of those NBA signings and trades and things of that nature. But before we get started, it looks like you got a dome stadium behind you. Where are you coming from today?
I'm coming from my old hometown recreational center. I was doing some travel coaching today, and I couldn't make it back to my apartment for the episode, so I took a quick stop, and this was the best possible place. So we got a nice little background today, so a little something different.
Very nice, very nice. We
Absolutely.
definitely got the best background on the show, that's for sure. Well, you know, since we last talked on Thursday, nothing's happened in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving still haven't been traded, and you know, it might be a while for those guys. I mean, what are your thoughts? Are you surprised they still haven't been traded yet, or were you expecting them to go by now?
I'm not shocked that they're not gone yet. I think that especially KD is waiting for the right offer. I don't think I don't think he's going to go that easy because everybody wants him. So he's going to wait and he's going to, figure it out and Kyrie's going to wait with him because Kyrie I do truly think that they mean what they say when they say they want to play together. They probably want to try to figure out a way to stay together. Do I think they're going to succeed? No. I don't think there's any chance that they pull that off. Maybe somehow they do, but I think it's going to take some time, especially for KD. And I don't think we'll see Kyrie moved until KD is. So I think until KD finds his home, I think they'll both be staying in Brooklyn. But they'll be gone by the time the season starts. I don't have them staying in much past the first few weeks of July. I think we could by next episode they could be moved, both of them. I think
Sure.
I think there's at any second, KD could pick a team because every team wants him. He has plenty to choose from. So, yeah, I think I'm not shocked. I would like to see them find their home so we can talk about it and just kind of assess where they're what it's gonna look like. But I
Yeah.
think we'll see them move within the next few weeks for sure.
Yeah, I mean, between KD finding a home and the Nets trying to find a trade partner to, take these guys on, right? They got to get something in return. The Nets, don't want to give them away for nothing just to get rid of them. You know, uh, Kevin Durant is a fit for 29 NBA teams. It seems like the only team not being the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving, there's still, those rumors about him going to your beloved Lakers. Um, still nothing's happened yet, but I'm with you. I hope something happens. Let's get this done and over with. But it very well, the Nets could very well be taking their time and just driving us nuts. But for now, those guys are still Nets, and who knows? Maybe we'll see a 12-team trade that somehow gets like 50 players moved, so that way Kyrie and KD can move to the same team. We'll see. But instead of trades that haven't happened yet, let's talk about the trades that have happened, Montana. Not a lot of big blockbuster trades. A couple all stars being moved, all star caliber talents. Um, what's one of the trades that sticks out to you? It's like that's kind of interesting. I kind of like that trade, and I see this working out.
Honestly, and I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I really like that trade that got Gobert in Minnesota.
Hmm,
I think this is the perfect setup for him because he can do his thing, and we all know how he plays center. We know his style of play, so he can do his thing, and they can still have someone who does the rest in Cat. So you pair him up with Cat, and you have two guys that maybe will balance each other out. Maybe we see Gobert fill in some of the spaces, which Cat is an all-around player. Maybe we see some spaces filled in, by Gobert that we didn't even see before. So I think it could be an interesting one. I really like the Murray one that sent Murray to the Hawks. I really like that one. I wasn't super surprised on that because there was a lot of talk about that early on and everything. But I think that would be my second up because that's huge for that Hawks team. Get Trey some guys. Is it the right guys? I don't know. I think he's a bucket. Is he gonna
yeah.
help bring them to a title? No, I don't think on his own, but it could be another piece to build that title contending team. So I think the Hawks won big. They're up there with the Clippers, who got. I know it wasn't the same thing, but they're up with the Clippers that got job. There's so many teams that are winning big, but the league and people outside might not look at it like that. So I think the Hawks are going to make a push. I think we'll see them win a solid amount of more games than they won this year, and I think we'll see them maybe improve their record and their postseason as well. So,
Yeah.
Gobert and Murray, those are the two ones that to me will make the biggest difference. And again, you know me, I don't like Rudy Gobert, so to sit here and say that he might actually be of great use to a team, I don't know, because he's put up the numbers, but he's never really helped them win. So maybe he'll do both now.
Well, Minnesota certainly hopes that Gobert is going to help him. I mean, he's going to be making close to 50 million a year for the next 3 years, and they're already maxing out Cat. They still have D'Angelo Russell on big money, and pretty soon, at some point, they're going to have to extend Anthony Edwards. Ant's going to get his money, and that dude's a walking bucket. He's probably one of the more exciting up and coming talents in the league that barely anybody knows about before this year's first round of the playoffs. Gobert is going to help. I think is going to help Cat out a lot because Cat isn't, even though he's 6'11", he's not a true big. He shoots outside. He's more of an offensive threat that he's not your classic post up, even though he can do it back to the basket center, right? So, and he's not that guy defensively either. So Gobert is going to help clear out some of the lane for Cat, help him defensively. Cat was getting in foul trouble in that series against Memphis all series long. So Gobert will help. What I'm curious to see is how teams are going to adjust to it the same way they adjusted to Utah, because Gobert doesn't have many skills on the offensive end. He's really good at being tall at 7'3", and that's pretty much about it. It was an interesting trade. They gave up, a lot as far as trade capital, 4 first-round picks. For a guy that's making $47 million a year, I guess you had to get something back. But I kind of chuckled when I saw it. I kind of feel bad for this guy, but Patrick Beverley going back to the Jazz after he won his NBA championship. I mean, the NBA play-in tournament to get to the playoffs. Personally, I wouldn't mind if the Jazz bought him out and he signed with his hometown Chicago Bulls. That's just me. But it sounds like the Jazz aren't going to be moving Donovan Mitchell, and maybe they'll keep Patrick Beverley and try to make a different type of playoff run and build around Donovan Mitchell there. But the one trade to me that stuck out, and just because it wasn't necessarily the player, but the trade stuck out for me, was the Malcolm Brogdon trade to the Boston Celtics. He only has a year left on his contract. He's a very solid player, a former Rookie of the Year. Boston basically got Malcolm Brogdon for a paperclip, a pencil, a gym bag, and a couple of dirty sweat socks. And that's no offense to guys like Aaron Naismith and Daniel Tice. Poor Daniel Tice got traded out of Boston 2 years in a row, going to lottery teams. Nick Stauskas, Juwan Morgan, but they did get a first-round pick out of that. So I think Malcolm Brogdon's going to help improve the Celtics. I think they still need one more piece, and helping with the Danilo Gallinari signing, I think is going to help the strong get even stronger there in Boston. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Another guy that's between that 6'4" and 6'8" height, wingspan, can handle the ball, shoot, defend. Really fits into Boston's scheme of shoot. Not necessarily 3-and-D guys, but guys that can handle the ball, shoot, stretch, defend. So that's the one that stuck out to me. The DeJounte Murray one was a little surprising to me. Not necessarily the Hawks got him, but because the Spurs actually traded him. Not sure what they're doing in San Antonio, and the Spurs were looked at as a model NBA franchise for how many years, right? I mean, it also helped that they had, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, but it looked like they were trying to build a young core with DeJounte Murray, guys like Lonnie Walker, guys like that. But trading away DeJounte Murray, that's got my eyebrow raised. I don't know about you. I mean, do you have any sense of what the Spurs are doing?
I mean, it's almost like they're rebuilding their rebuild, to be honest with you.
Right?
Because they lost their legends. Obviously everybody knew, even their coach, who has been with them since they found all this success, everybody knew that this team was going to fall off once Duncan and all these guys left, just because there was such a team built around those players. So when those guys were, retiring or switching teams, or it broke them apart. And honestly, Kawhi leaving was huge. That was a huge. It was a little bit past when they were all in the same place, but that was like the final piece. When Kawhi left, that was the final piece, because I don't know about you, but when I found out, I mean, obviously we knew Tim Duncan was going to retire soon, but when I saw that this was just, I don't know, I'm not really
It's
sure.
surprising. It's shocking. It's
Yeah,
shocking because
it's
you don't expect that out of the Spurs.
no, they're a team that's had success for so long. I will say I think they are trying to move forward, but I think that honestly, this is them moving past the Pop era. I think he's about out the door. I know we're gonna talk about that tonight and kind of go over our thoughts on that a little bit, but I think Popovich is out the door. I don't think that it's that he can't do it anymore. I think it's he doesn't need to. He's had
Well,
so much.
let's just dive into it. I mean, you already say he doesn't really need to do it. I mean, the guy's what? He's in his 70s. He's won 5 rings. I mean, could this very well be the last year for Greg Popovich? I think so.
I do as well. I don't think that the things that are happening in that organization would happen if it wasn't. And I think that Pop had a vision with Murray and some of these other players, and I think that whoever they bring in next or whatever they have planned for the future next, they don't fit in that vision. So I think a lot of these players being moved and these changes on that organization are from Pop being, more than 1 foot out the door. I think he has a whole leg out of the door, and maybe half of his body is starting to, exit the building, because I think he is done. And I don't want to say he's overstayed his welcome. That sounds awful to say about one of the best, if not the best coach in NBA history. But I think I think it's time. I think it's time. I don't think that he is in the same place to do this as he was before. I think that he can. He's capable. But I don't think that. I don't know. I just would hate to see him hang on until it's just ugly, and it's starting to get ugly, especially with these
It already
moves.
is. Yeah.
It is. It's gotten there.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how a franchise can take a dive after legend or legends retire and move on, right? I've seen it here with the Bulls. You've seen it with well, necessarily with the Lakers after Kobe retired. I mean, they turned around and had a couple bad years and picked up LeBron and got back to championship and winning ways. But so ask the Boston Celtics of the 80s and early 90s, right? How that works, and it happened with the Spurs too. you know, the trade for that sending Kawhi Leonard out of San Antonio and getting back DeMar DeRozan, I thought was going to work out better. It wasn't going to be a like for like because Kawhi, I think, is a much better player than DeMar DeRozan, even though DeRozan had a career year last year. But I completely agree with you. That was the beginning of the end. All those their big three retiring was more the beginning of the end. And a lot of times in sports, teams, especially franchise icons that have been there for forever and a day, they don't want to hang it up. They don't want to walk away. So the team is in an awkward position of, okay, do we resign the guy? Do we try to trade him, this and that? And it's a kind of similar situation with Greg Popovich, but can't trade Popovich. It's kind of hard to say, hey, Pop, I think you might be done here. Other than, well, you know what, Greg, we appreciate everything that you've done for the Spurs franchise for 25 plus years. We're not going to be offering you another contract, and maybe that's the way. But
It could be.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think he has earned the right to do whatever he wants. It's just, it doesn't have to end this way. And maybe Popovich is okay with, losing, and maybe he still gets the joy of teaching young players the game and helping to develop them. But I think in a way that's kind of holding the Spurs back. And maybe another thing was, maybe the Spurs didn't see themselves competing with a guy like DeJounte Murray. If that's your leading guy, maybe that's just not good enough. And maybe they're just starting from scratch. Who knows?
I think that it's a rebuild. Or, like we said, it's a rebuild from their rebuild. And it's never good if a team has to rebuild twice within the same 10 years. And that's what they had to do. I mean, have been rebuilding. And I don't think this rebuild is going to go as far as the other one did, because they had some good news with DeRozan. Murray kind of started to show out. They've had good players and good seasons play wise. They just haven't been able to get it done with wins. And even when
Yeah.
they've squeaked into the playoffs, they're a first round exit every time. They don't have that. They don't have that guy. And like I tried saying earlier before I got completely distracted by whatever else is going on here. Not the most ideal place to record, but we're making it work.
You
Can't miss an
got it.
episode.
We got it.
No, so like I was saying earlier, I think Kawhi leaving was the nail in the coffin because I feel like, and I could be completely off base. I don't know how that whole situation went exactly. I mean, it was kind of public, but not as public as some of the situations nowadays are. Even though that was just not that long ago, it still wasn't the same publicity some of these situations get
Seems like
now.
forever ago, right?
It really does. But I mean, when he left, I think he was like that transitional piece for that organization. And I truly think they looked at him as the next guy up that was going to lead and be that guy. And then of course we know he went to the Raptors and had a legendary, arguably one of the greatest single seasons in all of. I mean, he just went on a tear and he put the city on his back and won a championship and made everybody, including Drake, so happy that Drake tried to give him all these deals and all this stuff, and it couldn't keep him. I guess it wasn't enough to hold him back from LA. But I think he was the nail in the coffin a little bit. And I think since
Yeah.
him, I think they just have been unable to figure out that piece. And I don't even really know if they've searched too hard. I don't see them, out there pulling in big names, but it's Popovich. I feel like if he really wanted to, just what the weight his name carries could pull in some decent sized players. So, I think that but then again, with how the team has been going, which has just been this, on the downward spiral, a lot of people wouldn't want to play for that no matter who the coach is. So it goes both
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah. I mean, look, no matter what happens with the Spurs this season, whether this is Popovich's last year or not, the dude is a legend. He's got the most wins in NBA coaching history. I have him my top 5 coaches, NBA coaches of all time, easily. 5 NBA championships, a couple additional finals appearances on that. Dude's a legend, no matter what happens. The conspiracy theorist in me, and I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, kind of, well, not a conspiracy theorist. I think it'd be hilarious if Kevin Durant managed to get traded to the Spurs. As much as we're sitting here bashing the Spurs and questioning what they're doing and trading away all their young players. Now, granted, they don't have anything left to trade. If Kevin Durant made his way to the Spurs to play for his Team USA coach, Greg Popovich, and somehow they got some players there, that'd be super interesting. But then again, not a lot of people are saying, hey, I want to go to San Antonio. San Antonio, Texas isn't, I've been there, it's nice, but it's not exactly a big destination town, especially for NBA free agents. So, well, let's have a little fun, Montana. Let's get into the game early.
All right.
And those that have been following us here on Well Beyond the Arc know exactly what we're talking about. It's time for another installment of NBA Player Or. Those that have been following us know exactly how the game's played, but for you first timers, we're going to go over the rules anyway, one more time. So every week, I give Montana 5 names, and Montana has to tell me whether or not those people are NBA players, present or former, or somebody from a different profession, if I can speak English. My England is very best. Montana, how closely do you follow professional wrestling?
Not close enough to get a lot of these names that you're probably going to give me, but a little bit. I've never gotten too into it. I'm not going to lie. It's not really been my thing. I've watched it here and there, but I feel like the names I'm going to know are not going to be on this list. So
Well, I think that how I'm presenting the game, not a lot of people are going to know how these names are on the list. Maybe you've heard some of these wrestlers by their wrestling name, but what I'm going to do today is the game today is NBA player or former WWE wrestler, but with a twist. It's not their wrestler name, it's their real name, their birth name. So, but the good news is the hint I'll give you is that these wrestlers were in the WWE from at least the mid 80s on, maybe into the late 90s, probably mid 90s. And the NBA players on the list all played in the NBA after 1990. So anytime, but I'm not going back to the 50s, not going back to the 60s or 70s or 80s, keeping it the last 30, 40 years. So anyway, if Montana gets a question correct, you will hear the sound. Victory! Thank you once again, Johnny Drama. And if Montana gets a question incorrect, you will hear this sound. All right, let's get to it. Montana,
All right, ready. Let's get right into it.
Let's go. Name number one. Is this the name of an NBA player or the real name of a former WWE wrestler? The name is Kevin Brooks.
I'm gonna go with former WWE wrestler.
Wow, that's a quick trigger on the X there. Kevin Brooks, former NBA player, played in the league from 92 to 94, 3 seasons with the Denver Nuggets, a full 3.3 points per game. His claim to fame for me is I once got a pack of basketball cards and the Kevin Brooks Denver Nuggets card. I got 3 of them in the same pack of 12. I don't know how you get 3 of the same pack, especially when it's a guy I never even heard of, but that's how Kevin Brooks has made his way onto NBA player or. All right.
There we go.
0 for 1, but it's all uphill from here.
I hope so.
Name number 2. Is this the name of an NBA player or former WWE wrestler? The name is James Ware. James Ware.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I am going to go with former WWE wrestler.
Victory!
And you would be correct, sir. James Ware is the real name of former WWE wrestler Coco B. Ware. I don't know if you've heard of that name.
I just guessed, honestly, but that's how the game works sometimes. That's how I've gotten 4 out of 5 right doing that, so I think I'll be all right doing that this time.
Yes, you have. All right, 1 out of 2. Let's keep it, as Sammy Sosa once said, let's keep it continue. Name number 3. Is this an NBA player or WWE wrestler? Eric Williams. Eric Williams.
Man. Oh, man. Well, I'm going to stick with WWE wrestler.
Now, Eric Williams played in the NBA from 1995 to 2007, averaging 8.6 points per game in 658 career games. Played with Boston, Denver, Cleveland, was a teammate of LeBron James. New Jersey Nets, Toronto Raptors, San Antonio Spurs, and apparently was also a member of the Charlotte Bobcats. I don't think Charlotte remembers him either, but yeah, he was in the league. All right, 1 for 3. Come on, let's finish. You got this. You got this. Next 2. Name number 4. NBA player or former WWE wrestler? Robert Miller. Robert Miller.
I'm stick with WWE wrestler.
Victory!
Robert Miller, also known to WWE fans as Bushwhacker Butch. He was one of the Bushwhackers. I don't know if I pick him out of a picture. I just remember the Bushwhackers and how they would enter in a room.
Well,
anyway, the 5th and final name. Is this an NBA player or WWE wrestler? James Duggan. James Duggan.
Oh, boy. This might be the toughest one. I'm not going to lie. But I'm going to do what I've done the last 4 and say WWE wrestler.
Victory!
James Duggan, also known as Hacksaw Jim Duggan, former WWE wrestler. Well, I got to give it to you, Montana. After a rough start, you came back 3 out of 5. That brings your total to 34 of 50. Still many more up than you are down, but we'll wait and see what comes next week as far as NBA player. These categories are getting harder and harder to pick, and for our listeners and people that are viewing us, feel free to reach out with suggested topics for NBA player, or we want you guys to be a part of this too. And we'll have a little fun with it there too. So, let's hold for a quick moment, if we can, for a word from Jay and the Yankee and the Brit.
What up, everybody? It's your boy Jay from Yankee and the Brit telling you to come over and check out our shows. The Yankee and the Brit Sports Talk, Well Beyond the Arc, the Markout Podcast, Flagrant and Foul, Real Talk with Jay, and MMA Underground Weekly at YouTube/The Yankee and the Brit. Deuces.
All right, be sure to check those out. All right, well, Montana, this is one that you wanted to. You came up with this idea. Great idea, and I think it hasn't been talked enough about. Is there's been a number of big name NBA players, stars, all stars, superstars that missed significant time in the 2021-22 season due to injury and are looking to have a great bounce back season. Bunch of different names and a couple that I completely forgot about. You'd mentioned Kawhi Leonard. I completely forgot about Kawhi Leonard already. Guys like Damian Lillard, Zion Williamson, Jamal Murray. Um, List goes on. Who just let's kick it off. Who are you most excited to see come back, make a comeback in the 22-23 season?
I would say the player that I'm probably the most excited for would be the player that you mentioned, Kawhi Leonard, and I'd forgotten about him as well. It's not that he's a player that you can forget. It's just he'd been out and the circumstances are weird, which is how it's always been when he's had a situation. So I forgot about him, but I think he's going to come back and have a great season. And it's time for him to really show out in Los Angeles because they even when he's played, even when he's been healthy, and him and Paul George have been playing, they have not had the success that I think they were expected to have. I mean, they were supposed to be the team that would compete against the Lakers, and were they better than the Lakers last season? Absolutely. I'm not even going to argue that. But I would say that they were not better. They haven't had more success than the Lakers have. The Lakers won a chip. They won number 17 not even 3 years ago. So, I think Kawhi needs to show up, and I think he knows how to do that. He's a monster player. So I've got Kawhi having the best comeback season, but right behind him I have Zion, and I've seen some footage of Zion, and that doesn't mean anything. Obviously, as we've known, we saw footage of him during the playoffs, and it didn't mean anything. But I think he's looking dangerous, and I think if he can get his health in check and get the right weight for his height and for what he does on the court, I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. People are forgetting just how dominating he was when he did play. So I've got Kawhi and Zion as my top two.
Yeah, Kawhi. Yeah, completely forgot about him. I thought it was interesting the Clippers extended him for as much as they did while he was hurt and didn't play a single game last year, but they definitely want to keep that Kawhi Leonard, Paul George combo intact. Kawhi Leonard, I'm more curious than excited for just to see how he's going to come back. And I think everybody's curious and excited to see Zion Williamson get on the court. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where we were debating who would rather have on our team, Zion Williamson or Ben Simmons, because neither one of them was making it back to the floor. But Zion Williamson apparently has been putting in the work, and if he has, I mean, more power to him. Credit to the kid. I did see an interesting stat the other day. You know how much I love stats, Montana. He is the first NBA player to score 2,000 points in his first 80 games, 80 career games since Michael Jeffrey Jordan, if you believe that. We just haven't seen him on the court. It's a shame, but he's been injured most of the last 3 years. Very excited to see Zion come back to the floor. But who I'm most excited to see, and there's a long list here, who I'm most excited to see, just because he's one of my favorite players. Sandra, that's a good idea. NBA player, comedian. I'm excited to see Dame Lillard come back. Not because I think Portland's going to make much noise, but Dame Lillard's one of my favorite players in the NBA. Was out for most of the year with an abdominal injury. Portland took a nosedive south. Traded C.J. McCollum away, his backcourt mate for so long. They ended up making a trade for Jeremy Grant, who a solid player, but does that really move the needle? But personally, for me, I'm excited to see Dame Lillard on top of those other two guys. There's other people that are coming back. I mean, James Wiseman. I have him written down. I just can't read my own handwriting.
No, there's a lot, though. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I forgot about Dame. I can't believe I'm sitting here. I forgot about Dame as well. There's all these players that we haven't seen for so long. And even though they're legends, it's easy to forget about them because in the time they've been gone, I mean, we've seen players like Ja come into his own. We're seeing these other players come into their own. They're not going to replace these stars. You can't replace talent like these guys. But it's just not going to be the same recognition and the same, viewpoint until they get back on the court. But Dame is a bucket. He's been a bucket. Arguably, I think he's one of the biggest buckets in NBA history. I don't, is he on my top 20? No. Is he ever going to be on my top 20? No. But is he on my top 20 most clutch players? Yes. Is he on my top 20, biggest buckets, absolutely. I mean, he is, Dame, you don't want to ever see
It's
this.
Dame time.
You never want to see that. That means he made a huge mistake somewhere along the line. So,
Yeah.
he'll come back. And Wiseman, we haven't even seen. Wiseman is one of the biggest question marks because now he's won a ring. He even tried to recreate that iconic Kobe picture. That I'm not sure about. But, he won a ring. He has that to his name. It doesn't matter if he never played a game. He's an NBA champion. If he never laced him up. But he's a player that the Warriors either want to use on their team or to get another player from another team. So Wiseman is
like a Kevin Durant, maybe.
I saw that. When I saw that, I was like, if he goes back to the Warriors, I might be taking a hibernation from NBA basketball for a little bit. Not even because I think they dominate the same way they did, just because that would just be that's not the story we want. If we want a story, we want we want Lakers, we want KD to the Lakers. That's the story we want. We don't want to see him go back to the Warriors, but no, I think Wiseman's a huge important piece for the Warriors' future. So, I mean, he's a question mark. But if you watched him play at Memphis or before that, he is going to be, if he is healthy, I think he's going to be a generational talent. I really do. If you've seen him play, any of our viewers, or if you've seen him play, whether it was before college and he is a bucket. So he'd be a huge piece. But Damian Lillard, I mean, I don't see him winning a title, but I see him going back to the
Not in Portland right now.
No, unless they can get KD, unless that Instagram post he did is going to hold any meaning, and they can get Kevin Durant. But
yeah, he asked for KD. They brought him Jeremy Grant. How do you think he feels?
I mean, I guess he got something back at least. I don't know a lot of players that want to go to Portland right now anyway. So whether or not they're forced to in a trade or not. I mean, Portland's not an ideal destination, especially after this last season. I mean, it's the opposite. So, Damian Lillard's going to be a big question mark. Wiseman is the biggest question mark, in my opinion, because
we just haven't seen him enough.
No, we haven't seen anything. I mean, we've seen the things we've seen hasn't been enough to get an idea. And, we see, for example, summer league ball and stuff, like you can see a rookie there, but that is not how it's going to be on the big stage when it's against the big. I mean, the summer league and actual professional regular season games, whole different thing.
Big boy league.
Yeah. So anything we saw of him in the combine or anything holds no weight now because how long ago was that? It's been a minute now. We need to see him on the actual court, playing full minutes.
He needs to get work in though. I'm a basketball junkie and I've been known to watch some summer league games. Not that they're the prettiest games or anything like that, but especially when you have exciting draft talent coming out, you want to see those rookies play, just basketball in the summertime when there aren't any games going on. But Wiseman apparently is going to be playing with the Warriors in their summer league. He's number 2 former overall pick that's got all the tools. I'm with you. That's going to be a kid to watch out for. But let me give you another team that's got 2 guys that are hoping to make good returns, and that's the Denver Nuggets. And the Joker can get all the help he'll welcome all the help he can get. And Nuggets didn't have Jamal Murray all year from the torn ACL, and they had like 5 minutes of Michael Porter Jr. just when Michael Porter Jr. was starting to really come onto the scenes and explode into that offensive talent that everybody thought he would be. If the Nuggets can get those 2 guys back, add them to Joker, maybe add another piece as far as a guard goes, but then you're adding Jamal Murray back to that squad. I mean, they can make some noise in that Western Conference, and who knows, maybe that's a destination for KD or someone. But getting those 2 guys back without having to give anything up is going to be huge for the Nuggets. It's going to be really interesting to see. Especially Jamal Murray coming back from an ACL injury. Michael Porter Jr., his back has always been an issue, even coming out of college. He played like 2 or 3 games, and the Nuggets took a flyer on him, and it seemed to work out so far up until last year. But man, I'm going to have my eye on the Denver Nuggets too.
I know, and that's, again, there's so many names. I know that's one of the names I mentioned when I brought the topic up, but it's easy to forget a player like him as well, who arguably started to have breakout season when he got injured. I mean, we started to see him evolve. Was he always talented? Of course. I kind of have watched his career grow in a weird way because, Denver's the closest city to where I'm at to go to a game. So I've been going to so many Nuggets-Lakers games for the last like 6 years. So I've gotten to see him grow as a player. And I'll tell you what, that last season that I saw him, which would have been 2020, before the pandemic and everything, that was the last time I saw him in person, and he just looked dangerous. I mean, he torched the Lakers. If I remember correctly, the Lakers won in overtime, but he was just doing everything. I mean, he was carrying. So, and Jokic was playing. He was just not having a great night. That's when AD was being AD, and he could actually play defense. And so he was giving Jokic a run for his money a bit. But yeah, Murray is huge, and Michael Porter Jr. when he's played great, and I think that's why they've hung on.
Kid's talented, man.
Oh, it's so unfortunate we get all these talented players that we never get to see get to their full potential because of injuries, and a lot of them. It seems like more than them, a lot of them are coming into the league injured. I think we're seeing a lot of injuries that go hush hush when they enter the league, and so we're seeing players set up for failure because they already have things, from college ball or whatever else that might ail them in the future. And I think it's kept pretty hush hush. I mean, teams obviously know injury prone stuff when they're scouting for players, but
Sure.
I just think there's a lot of players that don't get a fair chance because of injuries and because of situations like that. So I hope Murray bounces back. I'm sure he will. From what I can tell, again, I'm not a Nuggets guy. I don't follow them, but from what I'm all over the media and looking at like different teams, and from what I can tell, it looks like he's been rehabbing the right way. And I think that this Nuggets team, they know where they got to when he was healthy. So I think the reason they've held off so long, I'm not saying he'd be ready to go this season at any point last season, but I think they've held off so long because they know it's crucial he's 100%. Because you get a super max Jokic with Murray and Michael Porter Jr. I mean, again, and maybe this is a landing spot for some stars. Maybe if once Murray is back or even before, maybe we see a KD go there. I don't think that'll be a destination for KD.
Just about to say that, yeah.
Like we said, KD could go anywhere. So anywhere could be a destination for KD if we're being honest.
If Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. were healthy last year, I would say that would be the best trade partner for the Nets to get back Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. That would be a hell of a pickup for Kevin Durant. I mean, it will probably take a little bit more than that, but that would certainly be interesting. But now those guys are coming back from injury. I really want to see those three play together again: Jokic, Michael Porter, and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray is a bucket. I mean, I think he got a couple of 50-point games when he was in that series against Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz, where they were trading 50-point games. Exciting basketball to watch. But hopefully, like you said, they come back strong. All-star caliber talent. Michael Porter Jr.'s got uber talent as well. Just both those guys need to stay healthy. A team that I wrote this team down. I want to get your thoughts on this too. The Orlando Magic have a couple guys coming back from injury. Now, these aren't big names, but they're former lottery picks, and that's a team that's rebuilding. They just had the number 1 pick in Paolo Banchero. And the guys I'm talking about are Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. Now, Markelle Fultz, former number 1 overall pick of the 76ers after getting that trade with Boston. Danny Ainge fleeced Philly in getting the man that he wanted. But, Markelle Fultz has been, unfortunately a disappointment due to injury. And, I'm just going to say it. He's got a case of the yips. But, once he got moved to Orlando, he seemed to be coming out of it, started to develop, and then, got injured, didn't play. Jonathan Isaac tore his knee up, tore his ACL, came back, got hurt again. The Magic have a bunch of young pieces. Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero I just talked about. Gary Harris just re-signed there. Wendell Carter Jr., young big man. Any love for Jonathan Isaac or Markelle Fultz coming from you? Or is it just kind of meh?
Both of them, honestly. I think that we forget, and again, we're in a league where there's so many stars, and we see so many players that are ridiculously talented that we forget about some of these role players. I don't think we give the love that some of these players like a Markelle Fultz or Jonathan Isaac deserve. Are they the Steph Currys? Are they the Giannis Antetokounmpo? wow, I almost butchered his name. That's been my goal.
You won't be the first. You won't be the last.
I got it. I've gotten it right for the most part, but that was
Yes, you
speaking
have.
a little too fast. But no, a Giannis, they're not a Curry, but they're players that help those players win. And Fultz started to show up. I mean, he really
Yeah.
looked good when he was playing. It's just he has been a player that I think was plagued with injuries coming out of college. That's a top tier lottery pick player, and I don't think that some of these teams look at the big picture all the time. They're looking for those, the big names, of course. But I think that he may have came, and I know that he had some injury problems in college a little bit as well, and just like doing some research on past things. Like I feel like that was a little bit of a gamble for a couple of reasons to pick where they picked him at. But we've seen gambles turn out the complete opposite, and we've seen gambles turn into championships. So I don't know. I mean, I personally think those two players make a big difference no matter what team they're on. And I think this Magic team, I'm not going to say don't sleep on them because I'm not going to call them, oh, they're going to make the playoffs. That'd be a ridiculous. That might be my most ridiculous take ever, saying the Magic are going to make the playoffs. Because let's be honest, I don't see them making the playoffs. But
Not in this year's Eastern Conference.
no, definitely. I mean, the Eastern Conference is only elevating. But what I do see is this team building up a young core of guys that can get it done. And then I see them throwing together a package within the next few years and getting some big name guys to come in around those group of guys. So, obviously they got the first pick this year. We talked, I think I was shocked that Chet didn't go first. I wasn't shocked with the order. I wasn't shocked with who was top three. Like we both agreed. We weren't shocked with who went top three. We were just a little, surprised by the order, at least a little bit. The number 3 spot, not so much, but that number 1 and 2 spot, I was questioning that just a little bit. But that Magic team is looking to make a push, and they didn't draft him, just to win 20 games again. They drafted this guy to make a difference. So I don't have a lot of love for any players from Duke. I'm not huge against them, but I'm not huge for them. But all the more power to them, and I hope that it works because that Magic team needs something because they've been again another team that's just going on that downward spiral pretty consistently. So, but no, yeah.
I remember the Orlando Magic being a major free agent destination once upon a time, and this is post Shaq and Penny. That was the year that Grant Hill, Tim Duncan, and Tracy McGrady were free agents. And that's when the Magic almost signed all 3 of those guys. And Doc Rivers this is another head scratching move from Doc Rivers. He wouldn't let Tim Duncan bring his significant other on the plane. And that's maybe one of the reasons why Tim Duncan re-signed with the Spurs. And if that didn't happen, that would have altered the whole history of the NBA, but that's a different story. Look, Florida's still got to be some sort of a free agent destination, even though the Magic aren't, they're bottom dwellers right now. There's no other way to say it. I think they are a year away from making some significant moves, and it's all going to depend on how well Paolo Banchero plays as the number 1 overall pick. If he plays well as a rookie, rookie of the year caliber type season, you got Jalen Suggs, you got Wendell Carter. We already mentioned all these guys, and if they come back, a bunch of young pieces, a very young team. Maybe they can package a couple of those pieces and get a solid veteran. Maybe, a free agent or 2 might want to sign there and be paired with a young and up-and-coming team. They got Jamal Mosley, who did a pretty good job despite the Orlando Magic record. They were competitive last year. If you watch some of their games, they were competitive, and Mosley had them playing with a spirit and a fight. They're just young and inexperienced, but I think they're a year away from making a move, and all eyes on Paolo Banchero going forward. But I'm going to give you another team, and this is where we can start chuckling. The Brooklyn Nets have a couple of guys, one of which, Joe Harris, making about $20 million a year, small forward, shooter, 40+% shooting percentage for 3-point land. He was out most of last year with an ankle injury. He's supposed to be back, and I know he's been mentioned in some trade rumors and things of that nature. Maybe he'll come back and make some sort of contribution. But what I'm really chuckling about is Ben Simmons was out all year too with an injury. What are you expecting from Ben Simmons, or are you expecting anything from Ben Simmons?
I mean, can we really expect too much from Ben Simmons? We've talked this has been someone we have our players. I don't want to put us on the same level as a Shannon Sharp and a Skip Bales having certain players that we keep going back to, but we do have some because these are players that it's
Whipping
hard not
boys.
to. Ben
Yep.
Simmons is a player where he is writing his own narrative every day. He is a narrative driven player. And it's always been negative. He is a player we've talked about a lot. Obviously, the Russell Westbrooks, but we haven't mentioned him every episode, just almost every episode. But I would say Ben Simmons is a player that can get it done talent-wise, but I don't think he's a leader. I don't think he really wants it that bad. And I don't think that he is a player that a lot of players want to play with after everything that happened, because these players talk. These players know more than we know. They know, Ben Simmons probably didn't make himself look that good. We know he didn't more than once. So he's not really the player that I see a lot of players wanting to play with. But in his defense, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes to a fault, and maybe this is another example, but if Ben Simmons really was injured, I think we could see him bounce back and have a really solid season. If he wasn't injured, could he still bounce back and have a solid season? Maybe. But it's like, why wouldn't he just come back sooner? It doesn't make sense. I don't see him having as good of a season if he comes back and was never injured, because that just shows that he doesn't want to play. And it's like, he was in Brooklyn with plenty of time to play. He could have played in Brooklyn. He just didn't. So that's a player that talent-wise, like I said, I think he's a great player. I think he's a legend. Not a legend, but I think he's got legendary talent. I shouldn't have said quite a legend. I do think he could find himself in the Hall of Fame if he ever plays again. You can't really make it to the Hall of Fame after less than 5 seasons or right at.
You gotta play to get in the Hall of Fame.
It's not just by this guy was talented, because then most players would be in the NBA Hall of Fame or the Hall of Fame in general, because they're all talented. There's no lack of talent. There's just not all of them can get it done. And he's one that has an immense amount of talent and still can't get it done. So that guy I'm not a big fan of him. I never will be. I've got a buddy that's a Sixers fan, and he doesn't even like him. So, it's very much like, even when he was playing for them, he didn't like him. So I think it's a very much overall felt feeling. I don't see Ben Simmons leaving or getting moved, but I see him going down with the ship if he stays there, because he'll be the guy that's expected to deal with this whole mess.
He's gonna be a guy hanging out to the dinghy after KD and Kyrie get traded. He's gonna be the last guy there. He's like, well, hopper.
Yeah, no, he will be. And his whole thing was he wanted to go to a team where he could get carried. He could look good and do his thing, but get carried and not have to put in the work to lead a team. So that backfired on him, which is actually kind of enjoyable to see. No matter where those guys go, I'm enjoying that a little bit. But Ben Simmons is just a player that is so much of a headache. I would say he's the biggest headache in the NBA currently, just overall, pound for pound. So I don't see him being a piece that is really that valuable, even though he has the talent to be valuable. So I think they'll retain him, and I think that he maybe could have a bounce back season. But what is he bouncing back from? Not wanting to play?
It's all uphill from there. You gave me another idea. One day we're going to come up with our NBA All Pest team, but I think before the end of the summer, we got to come up with our All NBA Headache team. I think three of them, the three of them currently are Brooklyn Nets, and I think that's KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons. One of my biggest pet peeves is guys that have all the talent in the world and don't use it and take advantage of it. There are millions of guys that would love to be playing in the league, or at least get an opportunity to play once for one game for a handful of minutes in an NBA game. Ben Simmons is uber talented. I haven't seen the work being put in. I don't know what happens behind closed doors, and I don't know Ben Simmons personally. But I think all the criticism that's being thrown his way is justified. I don't know what's happening between his ears, and that's none of our business. But he's got to, Jay said everybody gets in the Hall of Fame. Well, Ben Simmons isn't going to get in the Hall of Fame unless he plays. And he's still a long ways away from that. And by the way, Jack Haley's not in the Hall of Fame. And a former cheerleader and bench warmer, and Dennis Rodman bodyguard for the Bulls. So once Jack Haley gets in the Hall of Fame, then I'll say everybody gets in the Hall of Fame. But anyway, like I said, I don't know Ben Simmons personally. I actually want to see him do well. I wouldn't mind if he came back and shut up all the haters and all of a sudden started playing from game one and gets the opening tap, pulls up from three. And even if he misses it, the fact that he's a shooting at three, he's got defensive talent. He's got athletic talent. He's young. He's still young enough to where he can improve his game and make a difference. Um, I called him the most overrated player in the history of the NBA, and I'm going to stand by that until, we see him play, we see him do something. Um, it'd be nice as a number one overall pick and to have that talent to come out and make a difference. Who's going to want to trade for him now? And Brooklyn traded for him, and then he hasn't even played a single minute for him. So, again, another example of how the Brooklyn Nets are currently a mess. A couple other guys I want to run through real quick, Montana. I know we're coming up against the clock here. Gordon Hayward. He hasn't seemed to been the same consistently for a full season ever since that gruesome ankle injury in his first game with the Boston Celtics. I'll never forget that game. But Gordon Hayward, still a player that can get some buckets. Currently with the Charlotte Hornets, rumored to be on the trade block again. He was out for half of last season. Lonzo Ball from my beloved Bulls made a great impact for about 40-some games and then was shelved with a knee injury. Kind of concerned about him, hearing rumors about the rehabs not going well. His knee's not responding, and hopefully that's not the case, and he's getting on the mend there. And then also, Tim Hardaway Jr. did play most of the year for the Dallas Mavericks, but I'm sure Luka Doncic really could have used his help in outside shooting for the Mavericks. But those three guys, Lonzo Ball, Gordon Hayward, and Tim Hardaway Jr., which one of those three guys you think is going to have the biggest impact for whichever team they're playing on next year?
So it's tricky because I'm a big Lonzo Ball guy. I've been a big Lonzo Ball guy since he came to the league. Obviously, he came to my Lakers, and that I don't know if I would have followed him otherwise. But I think Lonzo Ball, we saw it when he went to the Bulls. Was it just him? No, but he was a huge factor in that team's success. And when he was out, when he was gone, we saw them decline. And a big reason of I think that happened. We can't blame it all on Lonzo. I'm not going to use him and say it was all Lonzo Ball's fault, but he tied that team together and did the work that team was lacking massively when they, lost in the playoffs and dropped those games when he was out. So I think arguably he was that team's biggest piece, whether or not fans look at it like that. I'm not a Bulls fan, but from the outside looking in, I think that he is your glue. He is a player that gets a lot of the work done that some of those other players might not be able to. I think he's a special player. He's Russell Westbrook, but he uses his head just a little bit more. Because he plays the game pretty quick, but he controls the ball. So I'd say he's Russell Westbrook 2.0, but not in a bad way. I mean, you could call him a brick if you saw any of his early games. He definitely was a brick. The first game I ever saw him play it, I think he was like 3 for 10 or something. Maybe not even like 2 for, I don't know. It was awful. It was not great. But I think Lonzo Ball is that guy that has the biggest impact. And then right behind him, I mean, you could put all three of those guys and say that, that they coming back. But Tim Hardaway Jr., like you said, Luka could have used him. And a lot of other teams could use him. Tim Hardaway Jr. is another player that kind of, I think, is under the radar, but he does so much for the teams he's played for. Does he live up to his name and senior? No, I would say not. But a lot of these players aren't going to live up to that. But no, I would say between those three, I would definitely say Lonzo is my top.
Yeah. I think Tim Hardaway Jr., no, his dad's going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame coming up here shortly, I think later on this year. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s had a solid career. He'll get you 15 points a game. He'll good outside shooter, 6'5", 6'6". Mavericks need a guard, and especially since Jalen Brunson left for New York, which it's only a matter of time until the Knicks are going to be fined for tampering because that's so blatantly obvious. They need Tim Hardaway Jr. He's definitely going to make a difference if he's back and healthy and help out Luka Doncic. Gordon Hayward, I've always liked Gordon Hayward going back to his days at Butler. I just don't know if he's going to stay healthy. Don't know if the Hornets are going to keep him, who could be a piece to play alongside Lonzo Ball. But I'm with you, or I'm sorry, LaMelo Ball. But I'm with you on Lonzo Ball, and I got to give Lonzo Ball a lot of credit. This is an example for Ben Simmons. Lonzo Ball came into the league shooting like this from his side, and he worked. He worked on his shot. He became a good defender. He basically transformed himself into a better NBA player once he got traded to the Pelicans, and now somewhere where the Bulls went to a team where the Bulls actually wanted him. Meaning, I know when he was at the Lakers before he went to New Orleans and turned it around, I'm like, I don't want any hard Lonzo Ball. I don't want that 3 for 10 or anything like that. But last offseason, I was excited when the Bulls signed him. So I'm hoping he's healthy. He's definitely an X factor. You didn't notice that his contributions on the floor, other than some outside shooting, which again shot over 40% from 3. But when he wasn't on the floor, you missed that defensive presence. You missed that floor general, his passing and being able to spread out the floor for DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. So I'm with you on that. Well, we're coming up to the end here. Another episode of Well Beyond the Arc. This is our 12th episode, a dozen. Can't believe we've made it this far, but we're going to keep going. Montana, this is not your only project that you work on. You want to give us a peek behind the curtain of your other podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually restarting, because we started and we stopped, but we're restarting within the next 2 weeks. We'll have our newest episode out. It's called The Connor and Heffernan Show. You'll be able to find us on Anchor, Spotify. There's going to be a lot of new applications and listening platforms that I have not been able to access previously. So it'll be great. But right now you can still find us at The Connor and Heffernan Show on Podbean, Spotify, and Amazon Music. And then soon that'll just expand within the next few weeks.
Nice. Very nice. Check that out. I've listened to it a few times. It's good stuff, guys. I also have my website, thesportspageblog.com. Basically, I write about a bunch of different random sports topics that you and your buddies may argue at the bar about, or you can get in any Facebook group and people argue about this stuff all the time. In addition, you can find links to these Well Beyond the Arc podcast episodes, and just recently started to dabble in some sports trivia, some online trivia. Just put the first 2 games up there, so be sure to check that out. Well, coming to a close here. Just checked my phone. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are still Nets, Montana. So, I guess we'll have to save something for next week. So, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And Boban, if you get bought out, I hope Arturas Kanishevas and Mark Eversley sign you, because I want to see you in a Bulls uniform. See you guys. Take care.